All right, let me see. Let's see how we looking in here. We should be good in the building. Y'all know what to do. We looking all crispy and clean on the screen. Let me know if you can hear me. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can see me. We are back at it. Good to see y'all in the building. Welcome. Welcome to another YouTube live stream and another episode of the ClassE Morning Show. I'm your host, ClassE, of patreon.com/ClassEbeats. Make sure you check it out. Link is in the description as well as in the pinned comment in the chat. And today we are going to get into some interesting things today. I'm sure y'all saw we had to pivot a little bit. Initially, we were going to have day 15 of Karen Reed, but we had to make some changes. We had to adjust some, and we're going to be talking about Diddy today because Karen Reed, it looks like court was canceled today for some unforeseen events. So I don't know what's going on there. I'm sure we'll get news and updates on what happened there at some point. But today we're going to be talking about Diddy and all the happenings going on there, which is insane. But before I get into it, I got to say what's up to the people, man. Shout out to everybody in the building. We've got my awesome, amazing Amy in here, Les Cleaver, Libby22, SC Girl, Green Eyes is in the building. We got Road King, Aphis, J Buckmaster, Kara Hampton in here as always. Slim Life, New Jersey's in the building. My dog, Peter Ortiz, is in the building. What's up, Peter? We've got Trisha in here, Tanya Johnson, Tatum is in the building, Miss Candy's back at it as well. Good to see y'all in here. Yeah, it worked out because I had someone yesterday asking me about covering Diddy, and I was going to well, I need to change how I say that, about covering the Diddy trial. Just relax. And I was going to cover it, but I was thinking, man, I gotta find some time in the schedule to make sure I get this Diddy content covered. But as fate have it, trial got canceled today for Karen Reed, so we're gonna get into what's going on with Diddy here and kind of kickstart things because there's a lot of information to go through and cover. I see a couple of y'all in here too. Simbi is in the building, says, oh no, Karen Reed, work is going to suck. Good morning, we love it here. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it. It looks like in-person court canceled, happening via Zoom, says Lady E. Oh, okay, I wonder what happened there. So for some reason, I didn't see a court feed. I can't imagine if we did have access to it, there would be something going on there. But everywhere I'm seeing that usually covers it, they say that court is canceled. I think Court TV said the same thing. I'm looking over at a couple other places. Let's see. Yeah, so we should be good there. Who else? We got a couple people in here. Let me read these super chats and then we'll get right into the show. Shout out to Slim Life, New Jersey in the building with the 5 bomb. She says, good morning, Amy, ClassE, and my amazing CEB family. Love you all. We appreciate you and thank you so much, Slim Life, New Jersey. Thank you for being here and always showing support. Did I miss anybody else in here? Shout out to the gang in here as well. If y'all could, I don't ask for much on this show, but one thing I do ask is that you guys like the video on your way in. Not only is it free, not only does it help the show continue to grow, but it takes less than a second and it lets the algorithm know you guys are enjoying the show. It shares the video and the channel out with more people, and I greatly appreciate it as well. Thank you to all 450 of y'all that like the video so far. Hey, I appreciate y'all in here already. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get into the content again. Y'all make sure you like the video on your way, and this is gonna be an interesting one. This is gonna be a very interesting one. So as you guys know, the Diddy trial started on Monday, and we're already hearing some very interesting things when it comes to opening statements, when it comes to the first witnesses that have been called. Brian Steele is up there actually questioning a couple of the witnesses that have been on the stand so far, and we're going to get into that here in a minute. But as you know, because this is a federal case, we're not going to get video coverage for the entire trial. But we just found out this morning that Law and Crime is going to do something very interesting, and I wanted to talk about this as we start to cover what's happening in the trial, which we'll get to in a second. But check this out from the Mediaite. And their website says Law and Crime recreates scenes from the Diddy trial with AI and official transcripts. So we're actually going to get some semblance of what's going on in the courtroom thanks to AI, these AI generated videos. It's going to be crazy. And y'all know we're going to review them here. What do they say? Law and Crime announced that it would provide coverage of Sean Diddy Combs' trafficking trial by recreating the courtroom using artificial intelligence. Since cameras are prohibited during the federal trials, there will be no real footage from within the courtroom as Combs faces felony charges for trafficking and transportation for prostitution. Because of this, Law and Crime, a legal and true crime media company, we know them very well here on this channel, founded by Mediaite owner Dan Abrams, announced on Monday it would use AI-generated segments to depict the exact words spoken by key witnesses, investigators, and legal figures, ensuring viewers get a factual, real-time understanding of what's unfolding in the courtroom. So let's check out this preview so y'all can see what it looks like, because this is going to be crazy. And actually, let me do it this way. We'll go to the YouTube channel.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Maureen Comey, Matisse Steiner, Meredith Foster, Madison Smizer, and Christy Slavic for the government.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You have Mark Agnifilo, Taney Garagos, Brian Steele, Alexandra Shapiro, and Jason Driscoll. And we're joined today by Mr. Combs. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Combs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Have you heard the questions I asked the government attorney and your counsel and their answers?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
So this is going to be wild, man. Shout out to Law and Crime going absolutely insane and covering this. It's going to be fun and interesting to watch for sure. That way we can have the visuals, especially being here on YouTube. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it too. So stick around for that. And we'll be covering those videos as Law and Crime produces them and puts them up on YouTube. But getting into some of the first witnesses that are heard in this trial, that have been heard in this Diddy trial, it already gets crazy. And we heard some of the rumors about things that Cassie was subjected to, the things that she participated in, especially when it came to these freak offs. And we're going to get an idea of what happened and what went down here. Check this out from XXL. It says Diddy paid a male, y'all know what, worker to urinate in Cassie's mouth, the prosecution claims at trial. It gets worse. Prosecutors in Diddy's trafficking trial say he allegedly paid a certain type of male worker to urinate in the mouth of Puffy's ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Opening arguments in the Diddy trial. On Monday, May 12th, the opening arguments for Diddy's trafficking case began with the bombshell allegations from the government. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson gave a summary of all the evidence that they would present during the trial, where they are accusing Puff of using power, money, and violence to get people to participate in wild marathons known as freak-offs or Wild King Nights. So we got a new name here, the Wild King Nights, going crazy. According to People magazine, Johnson described one incident where Diddy allegedly paid a worker to urinate in Cassie's mouth during one such event. The incident left Cassie feeling like she was choking, Johnson said. Oh my gosh. And then we have, okay, so it says due to the sensitive nature. Okay, so we're not going to show that there. That's fine. He forced her to have intercourse with the escorts while he watched and recorded it, Johnson told the jury. Prosecutors described Diddy as the mastermind of these events and said he used his staff to supply drugs, set up parties, and cover up his crimes. One of their main articles of evidence in 2016 is the 2016 video that shows Diddy assaulting Cassie at the Intercontinental Hotel in LA, which the prosecution says occurred in the middle of a freak-off party. Interesting. I don't think we realized that, because I thought Cassie came to see him and then she left and then she came back. So we're hearing a little bit of a different story when it comes to that situation as well. Cassie is supposed to testify along with multiple alleged victims during the trial, which is expected to last 8 to 10 weeks. Diddy's legal team shoots down allegations. What do they say? Diddy's legal team, led by Mark Agnif, I always mess up his name, so we're going to say Mark Garagos, and Brian Steele, y'all know Brian Steele, also summarized their case for the jury. They claim Diddy and Cassie's relationship was mutually violent. As far as the years of the parties or the freak-offs that the prosecution is accusing Diddy of hosting and participating in, the Bad Boy Entertainment founder's attorneys say he's participated in a swinger lifestyle, okay? And would frequently hire male escorts. However, they do not agree that it constitutes a trafficking charge. Okay, so that's a little bit looking into what's gone on so far in this trial. We're going to talk about some of the first day happenings, the opening statements. As y'all see, Brian Steele was the one who spoke during opening statements. So I want y'all to let me know what you think about this in the comments and in the chat as well. So let's get into this video covered by TMZ, where they go into more detail about some of the things that were mentioned during the first day of trial. Here we go. And
Harvey Levin here.
Intro.
Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
The Diddy trial is underway. There have been opening statements, and there is now testimony in the case. And the opening statements kind of predictably laid out the prosecution's case and Diddy's defense.
But what the prosecutors started with a bang, with a statement that clearly they knew would get a lot of headlines, but more importantly, get the attention of the jury, talking about details, graphic details from
crazy
freak-offs. And
we should warn the people watching this, this is going to get graphic.
Right. There's a reason that they last week kept saying that to all the prospective jurors, it will be graphic.
And before we get into that, I'm glad they mentioned the prospective jurors, because I want to mention this to y'all. And shout out to Amy for posting this over on X. If y'all don't follow her, make sure you go do that at @IAmyLee on X. She posted this picture of what the jury makeup is. So meet the jury in the Diddy trial. What do we have? We've got a 69-year-old actor and massage therapist. What? 31-year-old investment analyst, a 51-year-old scientist, a 30-year-old deli clerk, a 41-year-old homemade. Okay, we've got a 41-year-old communications at a correctional facility, a 68-year-old retired banker, a 68-year-old retired telecommunications worker, a 39-year-old social worker, 39-year-old social worker. How do we get two social workers in there the same age? 67-year-old logistics analyst, 64-year-old treatment coordinator, a 44-year-old assistant of some type. They've got a male, we don't know who they are. And then a 74-year-old treatment coordinator. So the interesting thing about this, and I'm going to get into more detail and read through Amy's tweet here in a second, is my guy at TLA did an amazing video about what to look for and what we should see moving forward when it comes to this Diddy trial, and specifically when it comes to the jury makeup. And if you guys haven't checked that out, I'll leave the link to TLA's video in the description. He talks about the makeup of this jury and how important it's going to be, especially due to the nature of these crimes. Obviously, with the freak offs being wild, the relationship that Diddy and Cassie had with with Cassie being victim number one. And TLA mentioned that there were certain things he would look for if he were trying to pick and decide on the jury. Now, if you go and watch that video, you'll see that if you look at the jury Diddy has in this trial, it goes pretty much against everything that TLA said the defense would want to look for when it comes to picking jurors for this. You've got a lot of older people on this. So we got 60, I say older, 69, 68, 68, 67, 74, 74 again. You've even this 50-year-old, when they hear what's going on with these freak offs and how things were handled and what was happening, it's probably going to be somewhat shocking and appalling to them hearing this. And maybe they won't be as open-minded to the situation that Diddy was in, whether he's guilty or not. So also, check this out. The jury for Sean Diddy Combs' federal trafficking and racketeering trial. Here's a snapshot of the 12 individuals. Obviously, we went through the 69-year-old male actor and massage therapist. He brings experience from both the arts and wellness sectors. 31-year-old male investment analyst, a young professional with a background in finance. This is probably a 31-year-old male, according to TLA, which makes sense, is somebody that you would want to have on the jury. But as you can see, that's the youngest person on this juror, other than this deli clerk, which we'll get to shortly. 51-year-old male scientist offers methodical and analytical perspective. A 30-year-old female deli clerk represents the working class demographic. 42-year-old female nursing home aide provides insight from the healthcare field. 41-year-old male communications clerk at a correctional facility. TLA mentioned this and he commented on this post as well. This is probably going to be the person who may closely side with Diddy. Familiar with the justice system and its inner workings. 68-year-old male retired banker brings decades of financial sector experience. 68-year-old male retired telecommunications worker offers a technical and possibly unionized labor perspective. We got a 43-year-old female physician's assistant, adds medical experience. We've got a 39-year-old social worker experiencing social issues and advocacy, the same with the other one. So this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out and if it benefits Diddy or not. Based on the criteria I'm hearing, this is probably not going to be great for Diddy. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Either way, y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments in the chat. And we're going to get back into that TMZ video here in a second. I want to say what's up to a couple people. Shout out to, I see Danny in real life is in the building. Good morning. Good morning to you. Sarah Daniel says, we want Brian Higgins reading the letters. No more text messages. People are saying Cassie only filed because she was jealous of Diddy and Young Miami. This was on IG today. Don't get me started on Cassie. I've got a lot to say about Cassie. If you want to know how I feel about her, you can go and look at the past videos I've made. I'll just leave it there. Hello, my friends. Hope you all have a great day. Shout out to Wendy. Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning to everybody in here. All right, so let's go ahead and get back into this TMZ video because this is going to be good. So let me rewind it back a little bit. Boom. There we go. All right, so now we're going to check out this video from TMZ and they're going to give more details and more insight into what's going on and what happened during that first day of trial. It gets rough, y'all. So again, I want to give you guys a warning. It's going to get pretty wild in here. There we go.
There have been opening statements and there is now testimony in the case. And the opening statements kind of predictably laid out the prosecution's case and Diddy's defense.
But what the prosecutors started with a bang, with a statement that clearly they knew would get a lot of headlines, but more importantly, get the attention of the jury, talking about details, graphic details from the freak-offs. And
we should warn the people watching this, this is going to get graphic.
Right.
Yeah, no
There's
kidding.
a reason that they last week kept saying that to all the prospective jurors, it will be graphic. What was said this morning by the prosecution said that Diddy hired escorts for these freak-offs and that it wasn't just sex. There were other acts that were going on. The one they said that really got everyone's attention, they claimed that he hired escorts, on one occasion hired an escort and forced him to urinate on Cassie. And
now the only way I'm buying the term forced is if what he did was outside of what he normally would do as a certain type of worker. And that's where I think we have to be careful about the words we're using. Obviously, the prosecution is going to use force. Can he remove consent and say, yeah, Diddy hired me for these type of acts, but this was outside of the scope? Kind of like we're seeing what was done in the Shannon Sharp lawsuit case. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see as the evidence comes out.
Forced him to urinate on
These dudes
Cassie.
are wild.
And that he forced not only the escort to do this, but Cassie is the way the government lays it out.
So we talked about this in our morning meeting today. So let's just be real here. This is shades of R. Kelly. And
That's the reason they brought that up first.
I mean, I don't think there's any question that R. Kelly paints a picture that kind of resonated with everybody. And the prosecution came out of the gate with something that sounded similar.
They want to show him, they want the jury to see him see Diddy parallel to R. Kelly, who everyone knows is going to be in prison for almost all the rest of his life.
Tough.
And so,
so if you got him convicted,
of course, and that's
you want it right,
and that's effective.
Yeah.
They also, and I think this is going to become a really important part of this case. on both sides. The prosecution painted Diddy as a violent, jealous man who could not handle any attention heaped on Cassie by
Sounds like that
any
was
other
true.
man.
Right. And that was part of their argument around the videotape, which obviously they mentioned as well. They talk about that beating, and the government was setting up what they know that Diddy's side is going to say this was not about forcing her to stay. This was an argument about jealousy, about she thought I was,
but
found another phone number. So the government is trying to rebut that already. Right?
Well, yeah,
Saying,
and the defense already came out of the gate in their opening statements addressing that. And they are saying that, A, Diddy is a violent man. They said that he has a huge anger issue, controlling his temper.
They said there's domestic, yes, they said, yes, there was domestic
That's
violence.
the key. That's the key. They are saying that this relationship was steeped in domestic violence. And they're alleging on both sides it was the nature of their relationship. Now, domestic violence is a crime, but it's a state crime. He's not being prosecuted
That's not
for
what
that.
he's being prosecuted
so
for. And
that's
they also
where,
reminded the jury of that.
and that's why they're raising it right now. They're saying, look, we're conceding it. There was a lot of domestic violence, they say on both sides. But if you want to target Diddy for a domestic violence abuser, guilty as charged, it's just he's not charged here. This would have been a state crime. It's not your job. Right. So they're coming out of the gate trying to diffuse what they know is coming next, which is the Cassie video.
Right.
And speaking of Cassie, day 2 starts today. Cassie is going to be taking the stand today. So when it comes to coming out of the gate swinging, they are not holding back. Day 2 is just starting. We just finished up opening statements yesterday, and Cassie's testifying today. So we'll be covering the transcripts and her testimony from that as well.
Trying to diffuse what they know is coming next, which is the Cassie video.
Right.
Yeah, and look, I think that's a pretty sound strategy to basically concede on the issues that they can't really win. There was some violence. That video tells a pretty vivid story, but that's not what he's on trial for. However, I think the prosecutors have a pretty interesting case. It sounds like they're sort of kink-shaming Diddy about his private affairs, but the further you get away from the norm, where you have escorts who are saying that they were maybe ordered to urinate on Cassie, it starts to look like it can't be consensual, and that's what they want to convince the jury, is that no one wants to be urinated on. So saying these were consensual terms...
I wouldn't say no one wants to be urinated on. I mean, it's strange, but if you're a certain type of worker, it's what's on the menu. I mean, I'm sure there's some out there that do that. So who knows?
Sounds like they're sort of kink-shaming Diddy about his private affairs. But the further you get away from the norm, where you have escorts who are saying that they were maybe ordered to urinate on Cassie, it starts to look like it can't be consensual. And that's what they want to convince the jury, is that no one wants to be urinated on. So saying these were consensual terms of a relationship gets harder to believe to a juror once you've established that he's doing things so far outside of the norm.
Yeah, and so,
that's true.
The defense said essentially, look, this is his lifestyle, this is his life, and that they are essentially trying to go inside Diddy's bedroom to prosecute him when they couldn't get him elsewhere. It's stunning to me that this parallels exactly what one of the lead lawyers, Mark Agnifilo, told us in our documentary, The Downfall of Diddy. I believe it was the second installment. This is what Agnifilo said, and they presented essentially this to the jury.
Let's switch our focus to the government. In my opinion, I'm just going to say it the way it is. No friend historically of the successful black man. Okay? None. And they start making this case, in my opinion, as a takedown of a successful black man. Here's a man who has made some of the most important businesses owned by a black man. Run, owned, created, founded. The vision was that of a black man. What have we done? We have reduced him, not everyone, but a large amount of our society, to being a monster. That should make us shake in our boots.
So and that's essentially what Tony Garagos said during opening, that this is that she said the government has no business in his bedroom. They have no business judging him or trying to charge him with crimes based on how he lives his life consensually in his bedroom.
So
do y'all agree with that? The government doesn't have a place in the bedroom in that sense? I don't know.
Charge him with crimes based on how he lives his life consensually in his bedroom.
So there are 3 main charges here. There's racketeering, the difficulty prosecutors have in this case is racketeering is usually an organization. This one, they're focusing on an individual. The only person charged with racketeering is Diddy.
Right.
And they're saying essentially he ran a crime organization centered around all of this. The second thing they're arguing is this interstate transportation, which is what we call the Mann Act, which requires force or coercion or duress. And that's going to be a huge point that the defense is going to raise, namely that did these alleged victims, who were ex-girlfriends, most of them, did they do this consensually, or were they pressured to do it?
Well, the prosecutors did talk about that, not so much with Cassie, but with another ex-girlfriend who they're referring to as Jane Doe, and they said that she is going to testify that she
I'm sure we'll find out who that
yes,
is.
she was, having sex with these escorts, but she always wanted them to wear condoms, and Diddy forbade that. So they are not going to wear condoms. And she says that she admits taking drugs, and she's going to testify to that, but that she is going to say that she only took them to get through it because this was not something she really wanted to do. And
It's going to be tough to beat.
There's the coercion that the government needs to show the jury. So.
But the third one is this interstate transportation of a sex worker, which doesn't require fraud, duress, or coercion. That's the one, in a way,
They kind of got him on.
Yeah.
Because he's admitting that.
Well,
he's admitting.
But you know what the issue is? The issue is, are these sex workers?
Right.
And that's going to be a big part of this, because if they are sex workers and the jury believes it, and they did cross state lines, he's going to have a tough time with that third charge. But the argument they're going to make is these people, they were men, were not sex workers. That's going to, again, this is going to get
I'm not
the
buying
definition
that.
of what makes
And
what makes somebody a sex
and
worker.
is that are one of those sex workers, one of the escorts, going to be testifying for the government, saying yes, I was a sex worker?
And we've seen already in a couple of lawsuits that were filed, we had a sex worker that was upset, not mainly because of what he had to go through, but because Diddy didn't pay him. He said Diddy locked him in a room and wouldn't let him out. And he had to do certain things. He rubbed the baby oil on him. He felt weird. He went and he did what he had to do. And then afterwards, he's like, hey, Diddy, are you going to pay me? Can you make sure I get paid? And now he's filing the lawsuit. This world is wild, man.
If they have that.
Our information is that we know of at least one person who has been subpoenaed, who they say is a sex worker. This guy says he wasn't a sex worker, although concedes that he was in that room having freak-offs with Cassie as Diddy watched. So that, there are three very different charges here, and they're all going to be kind of intermingled in terms of the testimony, but ultimately the jury is going to be told, look at this, here are the elements, look at this, here are the elements, and look at this, here are the elements.
By the way, just a couple quick things, a little bookkeeping. The jury that was finally seated this morning, 8 men, 4 women. Reportedly, the 8 men are split evenly, 4 men of color and 4 white men, and the women are all women of color. So interesting. We'll see what that does. And Diddy's, we should also say Diddy's family, his kids were all there. I don't know if they're going to be there every day, but all of his kids, the twins, his sons were all there.
And before court
support him.
And before court started today, he was in court reading a Bible.
Yes, and actually, I just saw a report that says that he has been at every opportunity reading that Bible while he's in court.
Hi, it's Tasha from Brooklyn. And I mean, we've moved past the 6-pack of white women on the jury and we've arrived at 8 men and 4 women. So I still think there's a big bias here, especially if the defense is mounting this narrative that, on some level, boys will be boys. Like, we can maybe allegedly commit domestic violence, but we also have our kinks, right? And I think that...
Well, Cassie was there for a while. So they're going to have to really convince them that she was there because she was there and didn't want to be there, even though she was with Ryan Leslie and left Ryan Leslie to be with Diddy. We don't talk about that, though. I don't know about that one. Boys will be boys. I don't think that's going to be the defense. I think the defense is going to be these were adults participating in adult things and they benefited, whether that was money, lifestyle, proximity. I don't think that's their defense is, well, hey, it was Diddy's in his bedroom, whatever. No, it's that they were participating and they could have walked out at any time. Seems like a pretty straightforward defense.
That Bible while he's in court.
Hi, it's Tasha from Brooklyn. And I mean, we moved past the 6-pack of white women on the jury and we've arrived at 8 men and 4 women. So I still think there's a big bias here, especially if the defense is mounting this narrative that, on some level, boys will be boys. Like, we can maybe allegedly commit domestic violence, but we also have our kinks, right? And I think that naturally will lend itself to some more sympathy from the male perspective, if I had to be honest. But I'm also honestly very surprised that the jury won't be sequestered, given how much information is out there.
You hit on something, because I got to tell you, I don't know how this jury avoids social media. You open your Facebook page and boom, there's a feed.
I don't know how exactly. If they go onto social media, they're going to see something about the trial. The judge has said they are not to watch news or
impossible
or use the internet.
It is
how is
just impossible for a 9-week trial. That is going to be the biggest hurdle to avoid a mistrial. Okay, we're going to take a break.
All right, when we come back.
There it is. So let me know what y'all think about this. I know TMZ is going to be covering this like crazy, and we will be here as well. I cannot wait to see what Law and Crime does with their AI videos. That's going to be fun to watch and break down. It should give us a lot to look into and also give us the visual to see what was going on in the courtroom and what it may have looked like. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments and in the chat. Most of you are probably on Team USA on this one, but those of you who feel like Diddy may have gotten a bad break, let me know what you think about that. And shout out to the gang in the building, man. Thank you for all 500 of y'all that liked the video so far. There's gonna be a lot of conversation about this. So if the adult prostitutes are being brought across the state lines and getting paid, who cares? That's how they get paid. Well, if the federal government cares. Because with them being taken across state lines, even if that's their job, one, it depends on which state you're going from, and two, it depends on if you wanted to do it or not. At any point, at any time, if you said, he flew me from here to here, I didn't want to be there, trafficking. You're done. It's, in my opinion, trafficking is one of the easiest charges to get. Because if you take someone from across state lines and they say, I didn't want to do that, that's it. You're done. Cassie is on the stand now, according to Dennis, already in tears. Man, it's crazy that Cassie's on the stand day 2. That means that Diddy, they're about to. This is witness. Their key witness is already on the stand. My goodness. Libby says she's with me on this one. Oh, yeah, with Cassie's testimony, I don't know how that's going through. Domestic violence survivors do dumb-ish too, or do dumb-ish though. It's hard to tell why they go back. It's 50-50. Either she was abused and went back out of fear, or she wanted to go back, or both, which is what I think it is. I think it's both. And if you go... to me, hey, call it what you want to. If you go back at any point knowing what you're getting into because you want to, then I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. You get what you get. But again, I don't want to go into the Cassie thing. I think there were times that she was scared. She's like, oh, what am I doing? And then she's like, but the yacht though. Oh. The money, my music career. Maybe a couple more black eyes will be all right. For over a decade, over a couple decades, it's going to be tough. Again, I'm not justifying what Diddy did, because obviously what Diddy did was wrong. So, well, I'm sure they're going to say I was forced when they probably were not forced. Diddy paid them good money and now they're trying to get more. Cassie got 30 M's. She is straight. He was forced and intimidated them. She loved him. I think so. Chicks get flued out all the time. Ain't that a fact, Danny, in real life? I can cry in the Honda or the Lear. Yep, Stockholm Syndrome, maybe. I think it was a lot of everything. But I will say at the end of the day, if as a prosecutor, you're going to tell me at no point before or after Cassie got her, you know what, kicked up and down the hallway that she didn't willingly want to be there, I'm not buying it. So the prosecutors are going to have to, they cannot go heavily, especially seeing that there's 8 guys up here. I don't think they can go too heavily on the victim narrative because there's too much to show. Cassie was walking with him on the red carpet. Cassie was in the studio. Cassie's on the yacht, dancing, holding his hand, drinking, having a good time. We're talking about victim. So they're going to have to go another route for me if I'm on that jury. So Peter's, of course, he's typing stuff in the chat that has not been backed up or found true. Jonah's in the building. Shout out to you. Thank you for being here, Jonah. I'm a crying the leer. Most people are. And then when they see later that they can file a $30 million lawsuit, they're going to do that. Rhonda's in the building. ClassE, you're cooking in the kitchen. It's on fire. Thank you for being here, Rhonda. They don't want to hear it, though. I think a lot of this is extortion and some truth. Cassie got paid already, but for them to build their case, she's got to be up there. All right, so we're going to keep it moving, and let's go ahead and get into some background on the first witness that took the stand. We've talked about this worker, we'll say, this SEGS worker, and what he had to say. Let's get into it from ABC News.
I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. The highly anticipated trial against Sean Diddy Combs is now underway. It was a whirlwind day. A jury was seated. Opening statements were delivered, and the first 2 witnesses, a male escort and a former security guard, were called. More on their testimony in a moment. There are no cameras allowed in court, but our ABC News team was inside, watching, listening to it all. Prosecutors didn't hold back, laying out the government's case against one of the biggest names in entertainment. They say the public knew Sean Combs as Puff Daddy or Diddy, a businessman, larger than life. But prosecutors argued there was a darker side to him, saying he used his trusted inner circle to run a criminal enterprise for decades, painting a picture of a controlling, manipulative, and violent Combs who allegedly forced victims into days-long drug-fueled sexual encounters that prosecutors called freak-offs or Wild King nights. The defense argued Combs is a complicated man, but said this is not a complicated case. His lawyer pointing to that disturbing video of Combs dragging and kicking then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura, admitting it shows domestic violence, but arguing it is not evidence of sex trafficking. Sitting behind Combs today, his mother and children, all seen arriving at court, supporting Combs as he faces 5 counts, including sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy. Combs faces a potential life sentence. He has denied all of these allegations. A jury of 8 men and 4 women will decide his fate. We'll break down what we know about each of them. There is a lot to get to after a jam-packed day in court. I want to get right to Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky, who was in court for this first official day of the trial. Aaron, opening statements began today. Break down these arguments for us.
They really set the tone for the entire case. You mentioned the kind of Jekyll and Hyde portrayal by prosecutors, someone that the world came to know as Puffy or Puff or Puff Daddy or Diddy or Love, somebody who was larger than life, who was a mogul in multiple industries, and yet who had a darker side. A lot of celebrities have an entourage around them, Eva, but Sean Combs, according to federal prosecutors in their opening statement, operated as a criminal enterprise with trusted insiders whose goal was to coerce women into these drug-fueled sex performances. Some of them, prosecutors said, lasted for days and were referred to by Combs as freak-offs or Wild King nights. And the defense sought to downplay these episodes, calling them the consensual threesomes of a celebrity who led a swingers lifestyle. And though they conceded that Combs could be violent with women, even women that he loved and was in a relationship with, they said he's not charged with being violent. He's not charged with domestic violence, with assault even. They said he's charged with sex trafficking in what's depicted on the video in the Los Angeles hotel from 2016. And in other episodes, they say may show Combs being violent, but doesn't show him being a sex trafficker. And they say it wasn't part of any racketeering conspiracy as alleged.
And this is so key. Again, 90% of y'all aren't going to give you know what about this part, about the legal aspect of it, right? All you see is Cassie getting kicked up and down the hallway. All you see are the lawsuits that come out against Diddy. Cassie gets paid $30 million, but we forget what he's actually being charged for, and that's the trafficking, which is why the focus is on this, which is why Cassie's testifying, because she has to talk about what the traffickees did. He's not being charged for assault, not being charged for battery. And I think that's interesting. The reason being, and a lot of this was said before, so we have to look to the lawsuit. What happened in the lawsuit? What did Cassie get? What did Cassie give? I'm going to leave that there, but y'all have to keep in mind as we go throughout this trial, what he's actually being charged for and what's actually being alleged. Do you all think that from what you've seen so far, that the majority of these instances, the majority of these freak-offs were a result of trafficking? Let me know what you think in the comments.
We saw Sean Combs' family going into court today. Did he interact with them at all?
He did, right from the start. He came into court, Eva, all smiles as his eyes immediately locked on to his family seated in the second row, his sons and daughters, his mom, all there to support him. He blew them kisses in court, made gestures across his heart. But once the opening statements began, Combs was much more dispassionate. At one point, as a man who says he was paid to have sex with Cassie Ventura while Sean Combs sat in the corner masturbating, Combs pushed his chair away from the defense table. His arms went down and he crossed his legs, listening impassively to all of this. At that point, when the male escort was testifying, his daughters left the room.
The first witness, former Intercontinental Hotel security guard Israel Flores, testified about responding to that now infamous incident, speaking with Combs and his ex-girlfriend, a key witness in this case, Cassie Ventura. How did Flores describe that day?
He set the tone by immediately, as the first witness, taking jurors back to 2016. It was March 5th when Flores said he responded to a call from hotel staff of a woman in distress on the 6th floor. He goes up the elevator. He sees Sean Combs sitting in a chair with what he described as a devilish stare, and Cassie Ventura clearly shaken. And he walked the jury through hotel security footage. Some of it that the prosecutors played outright, some of it that Flores had captured on his phone, and it shows the detail of what occurred. There is Cassie. She's in blue pants and a hoodie. She's not wearing any socks. She reaches into a bag at the elevator, and as she's putting on her socks, Combs comes barreling around the corner, knocks her down from behind, stomps on her, and the episode continues from there.
And Aaron, I have to ask you, we are seeing these sketches of Diddy in court. He looks very different than how many may remember him appearing. Tell us how he looks.
Well, he's certainly much grayer. You know, we've seen him that way over his last few court appearances, but people who may be, tuning in and seeing him for the first time here at the onset of trial, he's not allowed to color his hair in jail while he's incarcerated, so he's gone gray, both his hair and his beard. He's thinner than we saw him, certainly than when he was first arrested, much less bloated than he appeared at that September date, and he is right now impassive, as prosecutors have control, describing what they say he did.
Aaron Katersky for us there. Aaron, thank you so much. Let's dig in deeper on who is in this 12-person jury that could decide the fate of Sean Combs, as well as the legal teams involved in this high-profile case. Here to break it all down for us is ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, who's worked as a defense attorney here in New York City. You've also closely been following this case. You were in the courtroom today. Let's talk about this jury. 8 men, 4 women. What do we know about them?
So yeah, we actually know a lot. And as you pointed out, 8 men, and these are some of them. We know some of their jobs: massage therapists, retired telephone linemen. But aside from gender and employment, the other thing I want to focus on is age. We have a number of individuals who are over the age of 50. And the reason why I point that out is two things. One, it's pretty understandable. This is going to be a case that's going to last for 8 weeks. You got to think about who can take that much time off. The other aspect of that as well is when you're talking about consent, we as defense attorneys seem to see a difference between young people and their understanding of consent and older people. So this may benefit the defense to some degree. And of course, we have the women here as well, 4 of them, and one age 74.
Why do you think these jurors were chosen?
So sometimes when it comes to choosing a jury, it's not just choosing who it is on the jury, it's eliminating those you don't want to be on the jury. For the defense, I think they believe that these are individuals that are not just going to be unbiased, but also maybe lean towards their favor. For the government, they believe that based on the answers that these individuals gave, they're going to be able to achieve that conviction. So either side thinks they see someone favorable in this group.
Let's talk about the legal teams here. Let's start with the defense team.
Yeah, so we have some big names that you may know. Mark Agnifilo, you might know him from the XM Defense, where he represents Keith Raniere. Tenny Garagos, the last name may be familiar there as well. Mark Garagos' daughter. Alexandra Shapiro is one of the appellate attorneys. And then here are some names that you might not know, or you may. Brian Steele, a bit of a famous defense attorney in Georgia, maybe even more famous in his defense of Young Thug. And Xavier Donaldson, a defense attorney who is very well known within the Southern District of New York here, as well as Manhattan, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. Anna, Jason, and Linda all rounding out the team as well and supporting the defense of Sean Combs.
Okay, now we have to talk about the prosecution. This is the Southern District of New York. I mean, they have a crazy high conviction rate. What can you tell us about this team?
So I know about the Southern District of New York, both as a contributor and as a defense attorney. Yes, conviction rate about 90-95%. So we have the interim U.S. Attorney, Jay Clayton. He's not actually at the defense table, obviously the prosecution table, but he is the head of the Southern District of New York. And then you have other prosecutors as well. But I want to skip down just real quick because you might recognize the name, Maureen Comey. She's actually one of the lead government prosecutors in this case, the daughter of James Comey. And this is an all-women's team here. I don't think that was an accident, but it seems very powerful when they're arguing the case, when there are so many female alleged victims in this trial.
Yeah, and let's talk about who we heard from today, a male escort, a former security guard. What does this tell you, if anything, about the prosecution's plan here?
Two things. One, they're laying the foundation for someone very important to testify. They want that video in, and they also want the individual who was allegedly forced to have sex with that male escort to be able to testify as to that event, that being Cassie. We believe, or I think it's probably easy to assume, that she'll be testifying, if not first thing tomorrow morning, then at some point in time tomorrow. Now, that could be, in essence, to kind of like a strong, powerful witness. This is, as the prosecutor says, victim number one, but it also could just be logistics because we know that she is pregnant, very much so, and they might want to just let her get in, out, and get out as quickly as well.
Yeah, also you can't travel too late into your pregnancy, one of those things that we all know about. Today, Cassie Ventura's husband was actually seen leaving the courthouse. Tomorrow, we're expected to see her possibly taking the stand herself. That's pretty early in a case, right?
So it depends on the strategy. I can see why that would be perceived early. This is supposed to be the star witness. Why wouldn't you want to lay the groundwork for more evidence first before you have the major witness? But when it comes to convincing people, convincing a jury, oftentimes recency, meaning getting that information out there first, and frequency, how often you talk about it, is a great way to lock in that information to a jury. And then, of course, just timing. Life for her means that it's just to start sooner rather than later.
Brian Buckmeyer, always helpful. Thank you so much.
My
As
pleasure.
Brian mentioned, the 12 New Yorkers selected for this jury will spend weeks in the courtroom hearing evidence from both sides. And joining me right now is Eric Rudish. He's not part of this trial, but he has spent decades researching juries with attorneys as a jury consultant. Now, we know, Eric, from court records that Diddy's team is using a jury consultant. When you work on a trial like this one, how much do you really know about these jurors?
Well, you try to find out as much as you can, certainly. So based on the 12 jurors, the information we have, in addition to gender and age, as a jury consultant, we're also looking at their occupation. So are they going to approach this case more from an emotional standpoint or an analytical standpoint? And based on the 12 jurors' occupations, there are several jurors that are good for the prosecution. There's a social worker, there's someone who works at a nonprofit, there's someone who works at a nursing home. But there are also more analytical jurors who are more likely to scrutinize the evidence, such as an investment analyst, a logistic analyst, and even a scientist.
Let's drill down into that a little bit more since you were talking about their jobs and the jobs that they have. How do attorneys use that information as they make their arguments to play to these ideas that they have about these jurors?
So it's a very emotionally charged case, and the prosecution is certainly going to use that, the emotional element to help prosecute their case. For the defense, they want jurors to separate the emotional aspect of the case. And you saw from up front, the one theme is that whatever Sean Combs' actions were, it's separate from the charges that are being brought forth against him. So you want someone who could separate the emotional aspect about this case from the from the evidence, or how they will approach the charges and whether or not they feel that John Combs is ultimately guilty.
Eric Rudish, thank you so much for joining us today.
Interesting.
Well, still ahead, the defense and prosecution gave an overview of their cases today. What does that reveal about possible strategies, and how might they play with the jury? We break down the arguments next.
All right, so we're going to get into that here in a second. Y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments and in the chat. We've already talked about the jury makeup before, but when it comes to how each side is going to argue their case, it'll be interesting to see when it specifically comes to the trafficking side of things, because again, it's not about the assault. It's not about battery. It's not about him yelling. It's about the trafficking. And are you guys seeing that so far? Let me know what you think. And I see a couple comments in here too. And we got a couple super chats. Shout out to Shauna in the building with the 10 bombs. She says, good morning, ClassE, Amy, and Taco Tuesday, and the entire CEB family. I love you all. Have a great day. You have a great day as well, Shauna. And we're continuing to pray for your health, and always appreciate you being here. How do y'all feel about the daughters being there yesterday? Are they there today? I saw his sons there. Were there. I don't know about his daughters though. Let me see what else we've got in here. Shout out to Shauna. Y'all have a lot to say. And I'll comment on that in a second. Actually, y'all give me 1 second real quick. I will be right back. All right, sorry about that, y'all. We back. Let me see what y'all are saying in here. And actually, we had a couple people over on Cash App. Who do we have? Shout out to Rhonda in the building, dropping the 30 bomb. What did she say? For the kitchen is on fire. Shout out to Rhonda with the 30 bomb over on the Cash App. I appreciate you. Thank you for the support. Yeah, we cooking in here today. And we are not done yet. We've got a lot more we're going to get to here in a second. We're going to give more detail about the court proceedings that happened and went on yesterday. The RICO charge will send him to prison. What else are y'all saying? Everybody's saying hello. Shuri's in here. Good morning, Mr. Brown. My dog is in the building too. Good to see you. Diddy has a whole dang freaka leak. I would kill over it. I would keel over if I heard stuff like that about my father or mother. Yeah. Freddie Harris is in here, says, I wonder how they're going to defend him making that dude urinate in her mouth. I'm pretty sure she wasn't just agreeing with that. don't care how freaky a girl can be. Maybe it's possible. That's the crazy thing. Definitely not appropriate for those girls to be there. If Kim was alive, I don't think she would have had it. Shout out to Peter in the building as well, dropping the 5 bomb up in here. I appreciate you, man. If y'all got a membership from Peter, make sure you say thank you. All right, Peter's always in here every single show showing love. He was on the Song of the Night last night, major supporting too. Thank you for sponsoring the show last night again, Peter. I appreciate you. All I'm hearing is DV in this trial, but maybe that's the starting point to the trafficking in RICO. Exactly, Libby. And that's what I'm saying. We got people in here saying, oh, don't talk about domestic violence unless you've been hit in the face by somebody you love. That's not what we're not doing that here. This isn't even a domestic violence case. There's domestic violence that went on, but this is a RICO and trafficking case. We not even talking about that. Somebody got paid $30 million to not talk about it. So, hey, y'all can bring up DV if you want to. It has literally nothing to do with trafficking. I'm just saying. She's on the stand saying how he used to stomp her head. Oh, that's tough. Cassie's husband was there yesterday. ClassE, give us your take as a husband. Put yourself in his position. Y'all aren't ready for that. D. I appreciate the question. I don't think this channel is ready for that conversation. I'm not gonna put myself in the situation. All I know is that it seems like this man loves her and cares about her, has been there for her and supporting her. And I think as a husband, that's the right thing for him to do. Want to be there to support her and to help her go through and grow from everything that she's been through. So I will say that as a husband, and I will leave it at that. So shout out to her husband. I think he's doing his best. Dang, this is good. Hate that it's too early for popcorn snack. It's never too early. I wonder if her husband knew all of this before being with her and having kids. Would he have dated her? What? Shauna. Is it Shauna or Shayna? Yeah, that's the conversation I didn't want to have. That's a good question. That's a very good question. I don't know. Like I said, they were high as heck, performing all kinds of stunts. Paul says, let it rip. What's up, Paul? Nope. Y'all aren't ready for that. If you want to be politically correct, I agree. But around your boys, no, I do not care about being politically correct. There's just some conversations. I think there's a time and place for things. And I know emotions are high right now. So we're going to hold off. Again, I haven't held back on how I feel about Cassie. So if y'all want to see how I think about Cassie and her situation and what she went through and experienced and the settlement, I've got tons of videos out there. You can go back and watch it, but I want to focus on the trial at hand and kind of stick to the legal court proceeding side of things today. He was her trainer. He wasn't completely in the blind about her lifestyle. Great point. I do not care about being PC. Y'all should know that by now. As a woman, Cassie, how do you look at yourself? As a victim. What woman doesn't look at themselves as a victim? In 99% of situations. You think she's gonna get up on the stand and take accountability for anything that went on? She was with a perfectly fine, as far as we know, normal relationship with Ryan Leslie. And she's like, ooh, look at Diddy. I'm gonna go be with him. And she went with Diddy. She had the experience she had over there. And then she stayed. And stayed and stayed and stayed and stayed. You got the first time. It's half of my real name. It's pronounced Shauna. Okay, Shauna, I got you. Thank you for being here. I think I know how you kind of feel a little bit. Yeah. You know how I feel about this, Freddie. You've been here long enough. That man tried to put hands on Diddy multiple times. Talking about Ryan Leslie. Where is Miss Reed? Karen Reed is taking the day off today. Shout out to Julie in there. Don't laugh, Julie. Don't laugh. Y'all don't want to get me in here talking about Cassie. Listen. I think Cassie is doing okay. I think Cassie would have a hard time being in a relationship and having 3 kids after all she went through all those years. Unless, Libby. Unless. His lawyers just asked for Cassie's husband not to be in the courtroom during a testimony for fear he might be called to testify. What? They should not call her husband to testify. That would be weird. I don't see the point. I don't think that's going to happen. No, Alex Fine, Cassie's husband. Yep, shout out to Alex Fine. We unfortunately infantilize grown women, ESP, in age gap relationships. I give her grace, and I also question, why did you return? Yeah, I think that's, and she stayed for a long time. I like any discussions you do. I appreciate y'all. Unless is a fact. Yes. Listen, I'm not going to say it because I'm just going to leave it alone for today. The beautiful and quiet girls are usually the freakiest ones. Hey, yo. What woman doesn't look at herself as the victim? Really, Classy? I'm sorry. I know. Was that sexist of me to say? I'm not sorry, though. It's true. Y'all know y'all be out here allergic to accountability. Don't say, come on now. There's so many sayings. What are the sayings? Happy wife, happy life. They say don't get in a relationship as a guy, or don't get married unless you're willing to say sorry for something that you didn't do. Come on, ladies. You got to give me this one. No, they're not going to like that one. I told y'all I'm not politically correct. It's okay. And especially the church girls. Oh, don't talk about the church girls. Don't do that. You entertaining the wrong women. See? I don't entertain women. I have one woman and I'm good. So the prosecution may want Alex on the stand. I can't see the defense wanting him up there. That doesn't make sense to me. ClassE beats. This case will be an emotional roller coaster. Oh, let me be clear. I think Diddy is cooked. When I talk to y'all about the charges and what's being alleged in this case with the trafficking, it really doesn't take much to prove. It's going to be tough. And you have so many witnesses, 3 main ones. Obviously, Cassie saying the experience she had with the witnesses that are saying they were a victim of this trafficking. It's going to be tough. The RICO, I don't know. I'm going to let Brian Steele handle that one. He's the RICO killer, so he might have something there. I don't know how he's going to attack that from a legal standpoint, but we'll just have to wait and see. Karen Hampton said, good answer. On which part? Why wouldn't they charge him with kidnapping? Easier to prove. It may be because what the charges carry. Cassie is there to make it a little bit worse for Diddy. That's all. I agree. I see all these people willing participation. They knew what's up. All of them gold diggers. They want to get paid. We've even seen in the lawsuit, as I mentioned before, one of the sex workers, he went there, he participated in the stuff. And he wasn't upset about what happened. He was upset because Diddy wouldn't pay him. He's like, hey, Diddy, you gonna pay me or what? What's going on? Post Biggie, Diddy stalled so many people's careers, yet folks still thought he was a rainmaker. It was wild. I see all these people look. Oh, okay. Yep, I saw you. I read that one. Amy about to come cut. No, Amy's over there chilling. Amy's good. She's good right now. Now, I don't think Cassidy let them Ciroc owners help her go ahead and tell on Diddy. I think if he plays ball with them, this doesn't come out. Ooh, that's a great point, Freddie Harris. Diddy, before this all came out, was having a back and forth with Ciroc. He wanted to have more ownership. He wanted to do his own thing, and then we're not having it. So it could be all of it. It could be some of it. I think Diddy's just, he made a lot of stupid, dumb choices. He did a lot of messed up things, and it's just all, the feds have had enough of it. They're like, Diddy, we've used you as much as we need. We've got all the information. We've got the dirt we need on certain people. It's time for you. You got to pay up. He didn't have to do things this way, and he's done. I don't see how he makes it out of this. Just from what we've seen in these lawsuits, it's crazy. Just from what we've seen in Cassie's lawsuit, it's crazy. How is he in a RICO by himself? It's not. It's a Big Boy Entertainment LLC. It's Big Boy. It's Diddy. So it's all of them. Cassie don't care. She rich, married with children, and she's pregnant right now on the stand. She gonna get up there, cry her tears, and go speed off in the Lambo. That's a pimp. He is cooked. Diddy definitely. Oh dang! I lost my comments. Hold on, I lost some of my comments. Give me a second. Diddy definitely turned out his. Oh my God. Oh wow! I never heard that. He blew up his car for hiding Cassie. Oh, y'all are talking about Kid Cudi. Brian Steele might get him out of the RICO. Diddy might get probation for the rest of his life. I love Brian Steele. That would be crazy. I don't believe the hype. He might be home tonight. Shout out to Mr. Brown. Not Big Boy. Did I say Big Boy? Bad boy. Y'all know what I meant. All right, let's get into our next topic up in here. Oh, man. Shout out to everyone who's liked the video, too, even though I was up here being sexist. See, there's Amy. Amy's over there chilling. Y'all don't worry about Amy. So now we're going to get into ABC News, talking about the jury makeup and moving forward, what the defense is going to say, what the prosecution is going to say, and what we should see in the rest of this trial proceedings. Here we go. I got to work on that. I apologize, y'all. Here we go.
Back now to the case against Sean Combs. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer is back with us. Also joining us, attorney and legal analyst Ebony K. Williams. Brian, let's start with you because you were in court today.
Oh, God.
What did you think of the prosecution's opening statements? Do you think it was compelling for a jury?
Very compelling. I think it was good in the sense it was just under an hour, so I don't think people really drifted away. They were able to stay focused, start off with some good themes and also some good examples, talking about a night in which Sean Combs heard allegedly that Cassie was with another man, got an employee up at the middle of the night at gunpoint, and a security guard rushed his person's house, broke in, and laid out how these intricate examples of Sean Combs flying off the handle, as they seemingly described, were parts of this racketeering conspiracy, that he had this inner circle that helped facilitate not only every want and need that he wanted, including these freak offs, but also how he used them to control individuals around him, marching through each and every one of the elements in this case. It was easy to follow and very compelling.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of overt acts too. We've went through many of them when we looked at this indictment against Diddy. But again, as he's saying here, the RICO is because all of the moving pieces and all the things they did to cover up certain crimes, to make the trafficking possible, to get person here, to get person there, to make sure they didn't talk. So that's where the RICO comes into play.
Ebony, what do you think of the defense's strategy?
Yeah, I think the defense did a lot of the things that they needed to do by way of conceding some obvious points, right? You can't tell this newly sat jury of 12 that you didn't see what you saw on that tape, that horrific, traumatic, violent tape of Sean Combs violently attacking Cassie Ventura. So I think the defense was smart to say, hey, if we were here for domestic violence, we wouldn't be here. He absolutely committed that act. He did some horrible things.
Exactly.
He might even be perceived by many of you as a bad person, but it's not against the law to be a bad person. My client is not being charged with domestic violence in this particular matter. Thus, this is a not guilty verdict. That's their argument.
But do you think it's problematic that they admitted basically that?
No, I think they had to, Eva. I think preserving credibility is going to be so key for both the prosecution and defense, right? So they had to try to earn some level of truth-telling points, if you will, with this jury. And I think they were able to do that by admitting the very, very obvious things we know so far.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of people were questioning why did Diddy make this video saying, I'm sorry for what I did in that video. It was terrible. I should have never done that. I apologize. I said, why did his lawyers let him do that? Well, the reason they let him do that is because he's not being charged for a DV, as y'all said. He's not being charged for the assault, the battery, whatever. This is about RICO. It's about trafficking. So that's why he could say, yeah, you know, my bad. I shouldn't have kicked her.
So, Brian, as a defense attorney, obviously they're going to be trying to poke holes in the prosecution's case. Do you think they're going to lean into that?
I think that's the case. As Ebony laid out, you have to admit to some degree to garner credibility. You can't go and look at that video and be like, well, that's AI. That's not really our client doing that. And I think there's a strength in saying he is guilty of some things, but he's not guilty of anything. And I think Tenny Garagos, the defense attorney who did the opening statement, a very well-reasoned, well-argued opening statement, said it's not about whether or not he's a bad person, it's whether or not the government or the prosecution has proven their case. And these are the allegations, these are the charges, these are the elements. And juxtaposing and saying this is domestic violence, this isn't coercion, going to the heart of what sex trafficking and racketeering is, saying it's not this, it's this. This is what he's charged with, not this, not guilty. I think it was the only argument that could be made.
Okay, the name of the show is called Burden of Proof, Ebony. So what is the burden here?
Yeah, it's a clear and very, very difficult one, actually, if you're the prosecution. They have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt, keyword, there is a reasonable doubt, that Sean Combs is guilty of everything Brian laid out, from the racketeering, the coercion, the sex trafficking, and all of it. And, you know, they're going to have a lot of elements to meet. And again, the more the defense can convince that this is one private citizen's sexual proclivities that may be out of bounds to us, you and I, common man and woman, but this is within his legal right and it's not against the law to have these sexual preferences. The more they can make that, the prosecution is further and further from their burden of proof. But if, as also Brian said, the prosecution can successfully land the plane of connecting dots, right, between sexual assaultive behavior, physically abusive behavior, and individuals, that's going to be key, right, other individuals working in connection and in collaboration with Sean Combs to execute that under coercive measures, that is how you get to guilty.
Yep, and I said this earlier. I said it to y'all. Let me know what y'all think about this in the chat, and if you agree with me on this. I do not want to hear from a sex worker about trafficking in this instance. I don't want to hear about victimhood, because, and this is for the prosecution, not saying that it couldn't have happened, but I'm saying with how it looks, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the prosecution to say, yes, this person over and over and over and over and over did this, and now they're like, oh, now that I think about it, it's terrible. Unless we get into, again, the Shannon Sharp issue where it's like, okay, you're urinating Cassie's mouth, that was crossing the line, I didn't sign up for this, then maybe I could kind of see that. But for a jury, that's going to be tough on their part with these criminal charges to say, oh, that was trafficking because you showed up and maybe you didn't want to do something with the baby oil. It's going to be tough.
Ebony K. Williams,
if it were a civil
Brian
case,
Buckmeyer,
maybe I think
thank you both so much.
Coming
up, a music mogul on trial, the cultural impact and public perception as Diddy's trial begins and his former girlfriend prepares to take the stand.
a sex worker about that. Oh, it's terrible.
It's no surprise there's extreme public interest around the world in the Diddy trial as testimony gets underway. So what are people saying? For that, we turn to Kelly Carter, who covers entertainment and pop culture for us. Kelly, we heard it from prosecutors how Combs created this empire and that the public saw him as a larger-than-life cultural icon. Yet prosecutors say there was this other side to him. He's pleaded not guilty to all the charges. The interest is crazy, though. We've got to talk about the lines outside the federal courthouse this morning. Our Aaron Katursky said it was more than a block long. One guy was in the front of the line trying to scalp his seat for $350. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
I have never heard of such a thing as someone trying to scalp a ticket to go inside of a courtroom. I have seen, and we all have seen fandom, line up with signs in support of people. I remember covering that 2009 Chris Brown assault case out here in Los Angeles, and I was met with just hundreds of fans who were outside with those fans and support, with signs in support of Chris Brown, but never someone waiting in line trying to pawn off a ticket as if this is Star Wars. This is something we've never seen before.
It's only going to be worse.
I'm curious, too, when it comes to Diddy's public image, does the verdict in this trial really matter, or is the damage to his reputation already done?
I think the damage is significant, and quite frankly, I think that the court of public opinion is ultimately going to weigh so heavily, if he is found not guilty of these charges. I don't think that we should all imagine a world where he goes back to business as usual, because I think we know too much, and that's kind of the sentiment, I think, of a lot of people who've been paying attention to today's testimony and who read anything going into today's testimony. We know too much, and people are going to have very strong feelings about the things that they've discovered about him.
Yeah, and I said this about Shannon Sharp too. With the civil thing with Shannon Sharp, he needed to settle. Get it settled, get it done, keep it moving. With Diddy, should have done the same thing. He should have settled with Cassie way before all this came out. Stop fighting it. You messed up, man. Now, with Shannon Sharp looking, again, they're not the same by any means. Looking at the Shannon Sharp situation, the difference there with Shannon Sharp is he had this interaction with this OnlyFans chick. She says he went too far. She stopped. So Shannon, you messed up. I didn't like that. You shouldn't have done that. If Shannon Sharp faces criminal charges with God, I hope he does not. It's going to be tough for him to argue that. Especially if they have proof, if they have evidence. She's like, no, don't do that. With Diddy here, it's a little bit different because things are blurry, because not only did you have this happening multiple times with multiple different people, but you have someone who stayed in that situation, someone who let it happen and who participated over and over. You've got the defense saying, hey, similar to what they were saying with Shannon Sharp. Look, she liked it. She was in there. She enjoyed herself. So as a juror, you have to think, is this going to help or hurt the case from a criminal standpoint that these people were involved in this way? And so many, it's not just one-on-one person, one-off situation. It's wild, man. I don't know what to think. And honestly, as I said in the chat, it's not looking good for Diddy. We'll have to wait and see what the jury thinks. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments in the chat. We're going to move on to this next video here in a second. Now, this one's going to be good because we got some more text messages that we're going to hear from Law and Crime. We've got, we'll talk about it here in a second. All right. I got to read a couple super chats. Shout out to the gang in the building. Y'all showing major love up in here. We got my guy Peter Ortiz in the building. He says with the 5-bomb, the feds are masters at RICO. I agree. Unlike the APD, I'm sorry, but steel won't prevail. Peter just knows it all. He also says with the 2-bomb, the feds have the jury they wanted. I would only slightly agree with that. I think they would want more women on this jury. Having a lot of these guys, I think, could play better into the defense's side. But with those gentlemen being older, I could see how they'd look at this and be like, man, come on, man. What were you doing? This is stupid. No reason you should have been participating in this and acting this way and treating this woman like that. So I think with the jury, I don't I don't know how it could go, but according to TLA, this was the worst, almost the worst case scenario for Diddy. So we'll have to wait and see. Just like R. Kelly, it was all Gucci till the money ran out. I think they have Cassie testifying to his character. Yeah. And I mean, she was involved. I mean, she saw it all take place. So really the trafficking kind of all centers around and connects at Cassie, right? Because if she was the focal point of these freak offs and they're saying, hey, Diddy brought this person in to do that trafficking. He brought this person in to do that. He saw this chick over here, or Cassie met this chick over here and brought her in and they did this. Yeah. That's all. It's all lumped into one. So you have to bring Cassie up there to kind of paint the picture of how Diddy ran this entire enterprise, how things were managed, what her part was in that. It's a lot. It's a lot. Some of y'all are questionable, says Stay Tuned. R. Kelly was messing with kids. Nothing about that was okay. Agreed. Being an escort, it's a lot that comes with that. And they know that because they're looking at the bag. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're going to do that, you have to make things really clear. And I think that's what's going to be tough with Shannon Sharpe. I hope Shannon Sharpe doesn't face criminal charges. He needs to go ahead and pay that girl and just be done. Because again, that's something completely different than what Diddy's situation was. Just because their parents didn't care doesn't mean I don't care. That's a fact, man. We protect kids over here. No. When it comes to kids, I shoot first and ask questions later. In most cases, I can't. I will support that 100%. Again, we're gonna ask you a lot. We'll ask you a lot of questions, but you need to go somewhere until our investigation is done. Because I don't play that. What else are y'all saying? No speculation. Messing with kids. That's sick as if. Thank God no kids are mentioned in this federal case. So nothing's alleged there. So Diddy was dragging Cassie. Why these drugs got weird names? Blue Dolphin. Apparently, he was putting it in her drinks and getting her to perform acts on her when they first met. Interesting. We also got CPE in the building with the 5 bomb, just showing some love. Thank you, CPE. The fact that the birth certificates say they were underage in court docs. And that's why I am broke now, sitting on a gold mine, but my morals won't let me be great. What? D, you got to explain that one. Oh my gosh. Thank you to CPE. Yeah, R. Kelly, that's I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know enough anyway. Good morning, chat. Allergies got me dragging today. Shout out to Nosy Rosie. Thank you for being here, and hopefully you recover smoothly. Let me see. We were going to get into this. We're not going to cover this today. Let's go ahead and do this. And again, thank you to everybody who's liked the video so far. I appreciate y'all. I've got one more thing I wanted to see. What we got? Yeah, D's over there tripping. Throw the whole earth away at this point. Jeez, yeah. Can we send the fire? I'm ready. We can go. I'm good. If the Lord wants to come back, I'm not gonna complain. We get into it now. Oh man. But you got a lot of females like April Showers. What are you talking about? How can you say somebody else is not freaky to you? It might not be. Oh, okay. Whew. We need some punctuation in these sentences, my friends. You can't be damaged by trafficking when you're a professional trafficker. Hey, oh man. Diddy said he went to therapy after beating Cassidy. He said he was sorry on the internet, beating Cassie on the internet. He must believe it. if it was on the internet. Yeah, no, that's not how it works. We appreciate you for covering this live. Thank y'all for being. I appreciate y'all being here. There's a ton of y'all in the building. I think if they had proof of underage kids and stuff, that would be the first trial. Yep. There's some folks with gasoline. Okay. Whew, boy, I'm trying to read that one. Not Cassidy. Yeah, it must be the autocorrect. I don't know what's going on with the Cassidy issue. Either way, let's get into the details. Y'all, again, be prepared for this. We've got Law and Crime up here. Jesse Weber with the sidebar is going to be talking about, oh boy, some of the details about this Diddy situation, the Diddy trial, and what is alleging he actually did. Here we go.
Compelling and revealing opening statements by both the prosecution and defense.
Brian Steele in the
jury
building.
Heard the first witnesses in the case. Everything from Astroglide to alleged paid sex work to explicit text messages, Diddy wearing a disguise, the rapper being pushed up against a wall. This is your definitive recap of everything that happened inside of that courtroom today. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
Shout out to Jesse Weber with Sidebar.
Well, it is here. Today was officially day one of the federal criminal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. From Cassandra Ventura's lawsuit back in November of 2023 to the plethora of allegations and other lawsuits, to the raids on his properties, to his arrest and indictment in September of 2024, to his multiple attempts to seek bail, to several superseding indictments. May 12th, 2025 marks the day the jury was finalized. Opening statements began, and we heard the first witnesses, the first witness testimony in his criminal trial. Remember, this is a trial where federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York assert Combs engaged in sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, transportation to engage in prostitution, that he established this network, this enterprise, this pattern of criminal activity that was particularly engaged in the abuse of women. Now, we're going to plan to do daily recaps here on Sidebar every day of this trial if we can. Because as you know, federal courts don't allow cameras or recording devices.
Unfortunately.
We want to provide you enough details and description so it feels like you are in that courtroom watching it play out. This is a high-interest case. This is an important case. And we feel it is only right that we try to provide you with as much information as we possibly can. So right now, we are going to lay out day one. Jury being finalized, opening statements, the witnesses who testified. So for that, I'm going to bring in Law and Crimes reporter Elizabeth Milner, who is in that courthouse today. Elizabeth, so good to see you, as always. First things first, okay? And I want to let you go because you haven't even eaten today. I know there's been so much going on today. So first things first, what was it like today getting into that courtroom? I understand it was you had trouble getting into that courtroom. What was the scene like?
Oh, well, Jesse, I got here super early, a little bit like around 7 o'clock a.m. this morning. And
that's super early.
We had somebody kind of holding a place in line for us because that's how many people want to be here, want to be inside that courthouse, want to be inside that courtroom, whether it's the general public, whether it's journalists, whether it's other lawyers just wanting to get a piece of the action. Let me tell you something, Jesse. When I came here this morning, the line was all the way down the block, and it was just crazy packed with so many journalists, so many people who just wanted a chance to, again, be inside that courtroom today. But it was just a madhouse. Like a lot of us in the media were kind of comparing it to the Hunger Games. It was really that serious because a lot of people wanted to make sure, one, that they had their place in line, and two, that they were able to get inside in their same place in line, because obviously with this being such a high profile trial with a lot of eyes on it, everyone wanted to be inside that courtroom. So there were some times people were cutting the lines, people were trying to get ahead, they were trying to get up in any way possible, possibly that they could, because when the bailiffs take us up to that courtroom, they're taking us in maybe packs of 6 or 7. It's never like the full group and then the rest are turned away. But there are some people who try to sneak in with the group that are going up. But the bailiffs, sometimes they catch it, sometimes they don't. But then us who have those press passes were able to kind of glide right through. But then there were still a packed courtroom today, especially for day one, especially for a very high profile day, that being opening statements. But it was crazy just to even get inside that courthouse today.
And I followed you on X, and you took a video of Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who filed his own lawsuit against Sean
not
Combs.
Lil Rod.
He showed up today.
BS
That was
lawsuit.
something to say the least. I mean, was he in the courtroom at all? Were you surprised?
And y'all don't quote me on this. I believe Lil Rod's lawsuit got dismissed. So don't quote me on that, but I think Lil Rod's lawsuit was out of there. Let me
Nice to
find
see
out.
him. What was he doing?
I was a little surprised to see him kind of standing in the line, just, you know, like the rest of us. He came in probably, I would say, a little after maybe 7:30, like it was right before 8, because around like 8:30, they started bringing us into the court house. But, you know, I was kind of stunned to see him inside that line with all of us. He came in, he had the sunglasses on, he had 2 chains on, not to be confused with the rapper or anything like that. But, you know, a lot of cameras were inside his face, and through his attorney, he had pretty much said that he is not going to be making any type of comments, not going to be giving any type of interview. So we didn't see any of that while we were standing outside the courthouse, because remember, for our viewers, we're not allowed to have our phones inside. As soon as we walk inside those doors, for the most part, the marshals, the bailiffs are telling us to turn our phones off. And so once we all got inside the courthouse, you know, I saw him kind of standing in line with his attorney as well as his entourage, going up with members of the public. And so probably for the first half of the day, I did see him inside that courtroom. He was paying attention. He was following along with, you know, the preemptive strikes of the jury selection, as well as the opening statements. And then around lunchtime, not kind of clear where he had went afterwards, or if maybe, you know, had no idea where he went pretty much afterwards. So, you know, in this afternoon, I didn't see him in the courtroom, but for this morning, we definitely did see him inside that courtroom, along with his attorney as well, too.
By the way, totally off topic here, but can I talk about something very serious?
No, you cannot, Jesse. We're skipping the commercial. I appreciate y'all, though. Shout out to Longhorn.
Spirits, maybe it was because he needed, you know, maybe some religion or that type of thing. And so, yeah, a lot of us.
Let's skip ahead a little
Not
bit.
evidence. They're a preview of what to expect. I think they're quite important in a trial because it's the first time the jury is really hearing about the story they're going to hear for the next 2 months. And for us, you know, I was following along with it. It's the first time we got definitive confirmation that Cassandra Ventura is going to be a part of this case, that she's going to be victim 1. To hear about not only
Yeah, that 2 Chainz
but
law
hearing
was
that a chef may
online was funny.
testify, hearing about chiefs of staff and employees, and that there's a Mia, a former employee, that may testify and provide crucial information in this case. Then we're going to hear from escorts, text messages where Combs is telling his staff to bring cash for escorts. I think that's important for the transportation to engage in prostitution charge. For me, it felt, from a legal point of view, and I wasn't in that courtroom, but it feels to me they kept trying to explain how this was a crime, that they really have to convince this jury that this was forced, that this was coerced, that this was done against the will of these alleged victims, trying to explain why this is racketeering, why this is sex trafficking. Before we go to the defense and their opening statement, real quick, Elizabeth, anything you could glean from the jury about how they were reacting to the prosecution's opening statement?
Yeah, so from what I was seeing, and I couldn't see like the fronts of their faces or anything like that, but from what I was seeing, just kind of on that side view of the gallery, was just that they were paying close attention. It didn't seem like anyone was necessarily dozing off or just kind of avoiding what was being told right in front of them. For the most part, it seemed like these jurors were very attentive and listening very thoroughly. Some were taking notes, some were just, maybe taking notes just with their brain. I do want to go back really quick, Jesse, to kind of talk about Mia, because, I do want to emphasize to the viewers, I took lots of notes, and sometimes these just get kind of lost in the shuffle. But as far as Mia goes, she was another person that the government had talked about. She had worked for Diddy for years, but the government was saying that she was subjected to sexual assault too, that Diddy would allegedly put his hand up her skirt, snuck into her bedroom, and essentially sexually assaulted her. And so this was another person, in addition to both Cassie as well as Jane Doe, that we really got to see, just kind of the lengths of these allegations. And what kind of makes Mia a little bit differently is that she worked for Diddy for a number of years and continued to do so even afterwards. The government was talking about she couldn't talk about, what she had gone through until recently. And so, yeah, they really just were kind of essentially the jury was paying very close attention to, this very complicated case. Because, Jesse, you and I, we've obviously been in it since we work here at Law and Crime. We've been covering this case since November of 2023, or when it first started with Cassie's lawsuit. Yep. But for some of these jurors, they're really they're really just now getting the full case at them, and a lot was thrown at them in just day one.
Well, hopefully they don't know everything about it like we do, and they were being honest during the jury selection process. Okay, so now let's talk about the defense. Tenny Garagos, female attorney, delivering the opening statement. I think that was deliberate in a case of sex.
It's a smart move as well, for sure.
What were the highlights of her opening statement? What is the defense they're moving forward with?
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of surprised that Tenny Garagos gave the opening statements for the defense. It seemed like for the longest time, Mark Agnifilo was running the show, but it makes a lot of sense as to why it was Tenny Garagos giving those opening statements. Alexandra Shapiro, she's a great defense attorney, but she is kind of a spitfire. So I think Tenny was kind of the right approach here. She, just like Emily Johnson, kind of gave it very just, matter of fact. She came up there with her notes or for her opening statements and just kind of laid it out for the jury. There wasn't a lot of animation, even with her defense openings as well too, but from the defense's perspective, they were painting Diddy, and they were honest about it. He's a complicated man, but this isn't a complicated case. Essentially, the defense was saying this is about real relationships that the government is turning into a RICO charge and sex trafficking, and this isn't the case that a lot of people may have heard on the news. That's what the defense says, and so they said that essentially Diddy's story will be told over the next 2 months. One point that came up probably within maybe the first 5 minutes of the defense opening was, Tenny Garagos introduced Diddy officially to the jury, where it's like, this is our defendant, Sean Combs, because they refer to him as Sean Combs. It's never really Diddy or P. Diddy or Puff Daddy inside that courtroom.
Probably
it's
smart move.
Sean. And so he kind of stood up, sat back down a little bit after his introduction. And, this was something that we were expecting, is for pretty much the government, or excuse me, the defense, to say that the government shouldn't have any type of place inside of Diddy's bedroom. That, they admit that Diddy had a temper, especially when he drinks. Sometimes he gets so angry. They admit that Diddy lied, and he was not the best boyfriend or partner. He was kind of mean to his girlfriends, but he's not charged with being mean. He's not charged with being a jerk to his girlfriends. Essentially, he's charged with criminal acts that they say isn't criminal at all. They pretty much kind of talk about that they'll see domestic violence in this trial, and while they do take it seriously, it doesn't amount to sex trafficking from their perspective at all. They admit to Diddy doing drugs. They admitted to Diddy using baby oil. They said it's not a federal crime to use either of those things. They'll continue to fight for his freedom. They, painted the picture, and this was something we kind of got a glimpse of last week, where they were kind of painting the picture that these alleged victims in this case, including Cassie, including Jane Doe, were capable, strong women that were making adult choices. They were free choices, and they came with both the pros and the cons, and that essentially they were getting something out of Diddy, which was, their rent was paid for. Cassie got a car from him, that type of thing.
Well, Cassie got a lot.
They said essentially that Diddy was a jealous man, but also that he, that women were jealous of him too. And a lot of his relationships were driven off of jealousy, and that, again, Diddy was extremely jealous, and that, the jealousy and the drugs they'll take responsibility for. And he's not being charged with being a flawed person. Now, when it comes to Cassie specifically in the defense's opening,
interesting.
They talked about how Cassie was in a relationship with another man when she had met Diddy. Or that Diddy was in a relationship with Kim Porter until her death, which I thought was pretty particularly interesting, given that for the most part, I've seen this family out on social media and that type of thing. And from my perspective, I always felt like Kim Porter and Diddy kind of gave off this notion that they were just co-parenting, that it was never that Kim Porter was still with Diddy while Cassie was with Diddy. I was expecting for them to talk about the 2022 BET award moment where Diddy had specifically mentioned Cassie, and that talking about how Cassie had held him down and that type of thing, because from the defense's perspective, they were pretty much saying that Kim Porter was the love of Diddy's life, that once Cassie kind of knew that she'd never be Diddy's soulmate, that she would never be his wife, that type of thing, that's when she called off the relationship. And so
I don't know about that one. Y'all think that was the right move? What do you guys think so far about what you're hearing the defense, the picture that the defense is trying to paint? Essentially, Diddy was flawed, but he didn't do anything illegal. We've seen this a lot, especially with these RICO cases. We even saw that in Brian Steele's YSL case. Like, yeah, he messed up. Yeah, he shouldn't have been there. But what he was doing, was it illegal? Good question.
That was a pretty interesting moment, or just interesting openings that, some parts weren't kind of talked about necessarily. And then even when it comes with Jane Doe, the defense says that Diddy and Jane Doe dated for 3 years. Their relationship was also plagued by jealousy. Jane wanted to be out in the public with Diddy. But for the most part, they kind of stayed inside. They were away from the public, and that's kind of where the issues kind of came about, is that Jane wanted to be public, like Diddy was with other women. I can even point to Young Miami, for example, as somebody that Diddy was kind of public with and dating around that time. Same with Lori Harvey, that type of thing. But apparently Jane Doe was kind of in the background as a figure in all of this. And so pretty much another interesting part that the defense kind of talked about towards the end of their opening statement was that Cassie was having financial trouble at the time that she had filed her civil lawsuit. They claimed that she had never gone to the police. Instead, she went to a civil lawyer to make money. They talked about the claim that she had made a demand for $30 million, that type of thing. And so those were just some of the biggest moments. As far as defense openings go. As far as Mia is concerned, the defense was talking about how, they had asked jurors to pretty much evaluate her motive as to testifying, because remember, she was an employee of Diddy's and that type of sort. And so, that was pretty much the biggest moments of the defense opening, as I kind of just recap essentially all of it.
No, I get it. And look, you don't have the ability to have a computer there. They don't allow electronic devices. So you're literally reading from your notes. It reminds,
which is impressive. So shout out to her. What do y'all think about the opening statements, the sentiment from the defense here? I think it's an interesting take. I don't know how much that's going to play out with the jury, especially once the video comes in of him beating up on Cassie. They did have an up and down roller coaster relationship, as was mentioned. He mentioned her at the VMAs, and there's times that they were seen together having a good time, having a great relationship. How this is going to play into the RICO and the trafficking, that's going to be the key thing here. Is the jury going to look at this and say, yeah, it was clearly trafficking? We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments in the chat. Shout out to the gang. Oh, y'all are heated in the chat. Dang, man. Shout out to CP. J-Lo is awfully quiet. J-Lo might be testifying. It's possible, because there are 2 victims testifying that we don't know their names. So it's possible. I'm going to be honest. Prosecution is going to have to show some more tapes of the forced actions. I agree. That's going to be a key part, because these are a bunch of adults, y'all. There are no children or juveniles involved. And as Tay said, this and R. Kelly, these are 2 different things. With trafficking, there's a lot you have to prove there. I don't know. I just wonder if the jury's going to be able to see through that. If they're going to be able to see through to the actual charges, because there was someone else that jumped in. Who was it? Stormy's mom said, this is very hard for me due to the DV. Domestic violence is not a part of this. He's not being charged with that. I guess it could be in there as an overt act. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that because I'm not an attorney, but that's not what he's being charged with. I know that for a fact, which is interesting again. Diddy, with all his money and power, thought he was God. Yeah, I think he flew too close to the sun on this one, because it's being alleged that Diddy was an informant. It's being alleged that he was working with the FBI, CIA, other alphabet organizations, right? Those 3-letter organizations. And if he was, he may have been emboldened and had some sense of, I can do whatever I want, which could be true. On the other hand, you do have a history of Diddy, it seeming like this was his behavior. We've heard stories and we talked about him here on the channel of him in college. There was a lawsuit filed against him when he was in college that eventually got dropped because he had an altercation with someone he went to school with. Again, almost seeming like he felt untouchable. So could this be a Diddy thing? Could it be circumstances? I'm again going to say I think it's a lot of both. I think this case has a little bit of everything. Slim Life said he gone. I'm with you on that. Was this man not convicted for messing? Oh, okay. Y'all are still talking about that. Yeah, we're going to get off of that. And be respectful, Ray. We're all about opinions here and differing opinions, but there's no need for personal attacks. There's no need to call other people's names. You're going to be here, be respectful. I want to know what J-Lo has to say about it. She's been awfully quiet. I put it together after Peter. Oh, okay. I got you. What else are y'all saying? I definitely don't act my age and I love it. I try to, man. I try to keep it together. The Washington Post is giving minute by minute details. I think they are at lunch, but pretty interesting reads. I may go through that for y'all at some point. I really want to see how these law and crime AI videos come out. That's going to be fun to review for sure. So we'll definitely be checking those out as we go through it. Again, shout out to everybody who supported. Thank y'all for the love. I think we're going to go ahead and get up out of here for the day. And we'll get ready to cover Karen Read tomorrow. I'll be bringing y'all more updates on the Diddy trial. Obviously, because Karen Read's going on right now, we won't be covering it for a full live stream like we did today, but y'all look out for the videos because I'll be recording some videos separately and posting those so y'all can have some updates there. I want to give a shout out and thank you to everyone who supported today. Rhonda over on the Cash App, Slim Life, Shauna, Peter, my guy, Peter in the building, CPE. Thank all of y'all for the love and support with super chats and over on the Cash App. We will be back here tomorrow morning. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any time that we go live or drop a new video. I hope y'all have a great rest of your afternoon. And as always, you know what to do. Keep growing, keep pushing. Please keep it classy. We gone. Peace.